Hello and welcome to my channel. So I've decided to take down my original walkaway dress video to re-edit it and give you a much better recap of the process. Now, if you haven't seen that video, consider yourself lucky, as it was very painful to watch. It was all over the place and very jumbled because I tried to make it a tutorial video instead of just being creative, and it failed miserably. But I still wanted to share my experience in making this Pinterest inspired project. It all started when I found this dress on Pinterest and soon learned that it was the infamous walkaway dress. Now, I fell in love with this dress for a couple of reasons. One was the type of fabric that they used on the back and the front. I love how it's cinched in here in the waist, and the fact that it's sleeveless, and that there was an actual pattern that I could use to make this with. And unlike the other garments that I've made in this series, this is not going to be a thrifted, upcycled project. I actually went and bought myself brand new fabric, and for the main part of this dress, I'm going to use this gorgeous blue butterfly fabric. And for the contrast fabric, I found this brown that matches really well with the brown here on the butterflies. And one of the main reasons why I thought that this dress was going to make a great teaching tutorial was because that it was 3 simple pattern pieces, and this is in the shape of an apron. And basically means that when you sit in this dress, because the inner skirt doesn't close in the back and it's only fastened together in the back at the waist, the back will come open. And because the skirt that's on the back that wraps around to your front is actually a full circle skirt, so there's some weight to this skirt. So the dress will pull down in the back, lift up in the front, because there's nothing holding it together in the back, which means the dress will feel like it's constantly wanting to come apart. Ah, yes, the circle skirt. This is where one of the first mistakes came into play with this dress. When I cut my skirt piece, I flipped my fabric over and cut my skirt piece from the wrong side of the fabric. And it wasn't until I was cutting out my top that I realized that the butterflies were actually flying in a specific direction. And sure enough, when I checked my skirt piece I had cut, my butterflies were upside down. And after getting more fabric, I did indeed cut both skirt pieces correctly and managed to have all my butterflies flying in the same direction. And as it turned out, the first dress that I cut and put together was way too big in the top. I did try to salvage it by taking it up at the shoulders and deepening the darts, but it still did not fit very well. But I went ahead and finished it anyways because I was wearing it out to dinner for my birthday. This is where I learned the huge flaw in the way this dress functions when you sit down in it. I think I spent the entire evening at dinner fussing with it and pretty much hated this dress by the end of the night. I love the fabric, but that was about it. And I'm sure I could have saved myself a lot of heartache if I would have just made a mock-up before cutting my fabric. But I did not give up hope. After watching a tutorial by the Closet Historian, I found that I needed to modify this the way that she did, by making the front of the dress into an actual skirt that closes in the back. So I made a mock-up to test my theory and found that it fit much better. And I felt that I had solved the problem of the dress coming apart while sitting. And by the way, I used butter egg number 6414 for the skirt pattern. Now I could cut walkaway dress number 2. I did modify the back wraparound to sit a bit higher and was thankful to have extra brown fabric to cut a new inner skirt. Because this fabric frayed very easily, I serged the edge before doing a 1/4 inch double turned hem. This really is an easy dress to put together, and the darts give it some really nice shape. Now that dress number 2 is sewn together, we can talk about bias tape. View A has a contrast back and skirt, bias tape, finished edges. And you can see here in the picture, they have bias tape wrapped edges. And yes, you can buy prepackaged bias cut tape to wrap your edges. And they come in many, many colors. I'm going to be using the brown fabric that I'm using for my front and turn this into bias cut tape. And it's not that complicated, and I'm going to teach you how. To find the true bias of your fabric, fold one corner over so that your selvage and cross-grain edges line up. Then cut along the fold line, which is your true bias. A 1/2 inch bias tape is just that, a 1/2 inch folded in and then folded in again, which is roughly 2 inches across. And I'm using this ruler, which is 2 inches wide, to cut my strips. To sew one consecutive piece of bias tape, your ends need to be cut on the straight, which I know looks like it's on the diagonal, and sew the right sides facing together from valley to valley, and then press open flat. Now you thread one end of the bias tape through the back of the bias tape maker, pull it out through the front, and press it flat as you pull. Then fold it over and press again, and you've just made your very own bias tape. And this is what it looked like with all brown bias tape. I like the brown on the blue butterfly fabric, yes, but not on the brown itself. So I'm going to change it to the blue. When pinning on your bias tape, be careful to not pull the tape tightly, or you may end up shrinking your seam allowance when sewn. And here at the shoulder, I sewed the two ends of the bias tape together. Then just fold the rest of the tape over to the back and either stitch it into place just next to the bias tape so your stitches are kind of hidden, or sew through the bias tape for a decorative look. And now my dress looks a whole lot better. Next comes the invisible zipper. Now I'm not going to go into great detail of how to do that. Instead, you can click the link here on the screen to watch the video I made showing you in great detail how to put in an invisible zipper. And now all of this fits very well. But there is still one major flaw about this dress. And I know you might be thinking, well, Holly, it looks pretty done to me. What seems to be the problem? Well, let me show you. Whenever you sit in this dress, when I stand up, because this dress is made out of cotton, my skirt rides up. And so I constantly have to fuss with my skirt. But I think the only way to solve this last and final problem is to put a lining in the skirt. And just like that, we have a lining in the skirt. All I did was copy the skirt pattern of the dress to make the lining, opened up the bias tape, attached it here at the sides so that it would not flop around, and gave it a simple rolled edge hem. Now you might be asking yourself why I have this seam down the center back of the dress. Well, that's because when I cut dress number 2, I did not have enough fabric to recut another piece. And so I had to literally match up the butterflies down the seam so that you wouldn't tell it was in 2 pieces. And I think I did a pretty good job. And here is the inner dress, I guess you could say, with its full skirt. And so now the dress is finally done. As you can see, this hooks here in the front, and this tie is basically fake. It's just to give you a pretty bow and keep it together in the front. And you know what's even better about this whole project? I found the most perfect shoes on Pinterest for this whole outfit, and I am super excited to wear it. And now it's on to the photo shoot.